Hi, how are you? If I tell you evolution, what comes through your mind? Don't worry, you are in a right place. Here we are going to explain you evolution. We are going to explain you the origin of life, where we come from, how we're on the path of the time our evolution, important people that were part of this process, some theories, and more. Then we are going to understand together the path to humanity. We are going to see some disaster changes, things that affect the world in that time, but sometime later it was very important part to form what we are now.
Now we're gonna talk about the origin of life. There are different theories of how life itself was created. However, there is one that comes out of the most. In the history of evolution, different characters stand out that leave a permanent mark with their ideologies and research. The solar system was a startling mass of gas and dust, and its material was pulled together by gravity, and like this, the sun was created. By the time all these wastes of gas and dust generate a collision, the planets are created. And with the time, the constant collisions of different substances in space made the size of our planets increase, including of course the Earth, and thus the Earth was formed. Life began in the water, showing itself as the mixture of different substances and components that later formed the cell. However, it was not like the ocean we know today. It was warmer, more acid, and rich of iron. The atmosphere was mostly nitrogen, carbon dioxide, but no oxygen. Hot chemicals rising through the seafloor enabled a chemical reaction between hydrogen and carbon dioxide, producing simple organic compounds. Later, by the process of endosymbiosis, cells started to get together and form more complex organisms. A cool fact is that the first species that colonized land were a mix between amphibians and fish, that later developed more abilities to survive in land. Many years later, the scientist Darwin was the one who opened the way to understand how natural selection works.
And talking about land, life had to find its way in the new world it had been born in. And it took its time. 3.5 billion years ago, the first life form started conquering land. And from there, it went north for them. Life had to go through 5 mass extinctions. And all of those brought an ending to a pinnacle moment in history. For example, the first mass extinction took out 60% of the whole biomass of the Earth. And the third extinction took 96% of the whole biomass of Earth. Life almost ended. Then, after seeing and after studying these events, these catastrophic events, we can see that nature has had a cycle, a pretty standard and pretty linear cycle, which is you have a blossom of life. A lot of new species get born from few common ancestors. Life spikes, and then the mass extinction comes and wipes all of that life. After that life is done, after that cycle is done, then life blossoms again in another type of species, type of animal, type of plant. Another type of life becomes dominant. After the 5th mass extinction, mammals became dominant. And as we may very well seem to this day, mammals are dominant, or rather, we are dominant. Slowly, mammals conquered lands across the world as conquerors, but the real conquerors came 2.5 million years ago with the Homo habilis, the first species of humans to ever roam this earth. Species that would walk on the world and later become the humans appeared all over Africa, moving north and east to what today is Europe and Asia. And those who went to Asia, those who settled in Asia, before they actually settled, some moved through a very weird trench back in the Ice Age, reaching a new world, America. And when this cycle is done, humans settled. And this is where society starts.
We're going to see the beginning of language. Incredible. We're going to see that communication has always been a very important part for the society. But here we're going to know more about different purpose that she had and the changes that she had through the years.
The beginning of language. Since the beginning of the human race, we have tried to communicate between our groups to know what each other is feeling or to give an alert of some sort of attack. And one of the first ways to communicate these things were a speech based in onomatopoeic, marked with words like meow, bang, splash, moo, and mo. But also because of the time we didn't have letters, we used drawings representing a message, or trying to record the animals for different motives, or also how they lived their lives at the moment. This kind of language worked for a long time until the human race began to exit Africa and move to other parts of the continent and creating other civilizations in Asia. And one of the most important languages were created, and also the most ancient one that has been analyzed, is the linguists and grammarians from ancient India. Yaska was existent since the 6th century before Christ until the 5th century before Christ. After Panini was existent since the 520 before Christ until the 460 before Christ. After that, there is no register until the 2nd century before Christ that it was created the Katyayana, and after, in the same century, the Patanjali language was created in the same century. These languages began to evolve and spread throughout Europe and Asia, but the part that began the way to get to the English was the Greeks. They established their language and began to find words that were related to previous languages, and also there's where etymology begins, and is a dialogue from Socrates guessing words that sound similar to other words from previous languages or previous version of their own language. After a lot of years, the Greeks got taken by a bigger empire, the Roman Empire. This empire also had their own languages, but because they had a lot of territory, they took words from the places that they conquered, and that changed little by little their own language. And the language could change a little bit because of which empire or natives were before. When the empire began to fall, the first Germanic languages began to appear, and from these languages appeared the first version of the language that we know as English. That's why there are so many similarities between a lot of languages.
And the last point, that it's what is happening nowadays. We are suffering a very different and harder situation, and today we're changing because of that. So here we can understand more of our current evolution. So let's start.
As everybody knows, at this moment we are in a really hard moment for the human race. A lot of people, cities or countries are in a complicated situation, but not everything is bad news. This quarantine was and is helpful for people to understand and to see in a different way the world, how we speak and think. We can say that this quarantine and obviously the COVID-19 made people evolve on both ways, biological and ethical way. You can see how your life was before the quarantine and right now seeing how a lot of things have changed. And it doesn't have to be a physical change, it could be an emotional, or how you see the world, or just change the way of how you think about something or somebody. As you know, in this isolation people are getting nervous, depressed, stressed. And now the luxury activities are converted in necessary activities. We can know how many times we are going to be like this, but always, in the path of the time, humans need to adapt to the actual conditions and get stronger. People are fighting for survival, no matter if this is for a known benefit or for a global one. This situation is showing how good people is and how they can help others.